So this next session is the communications focus group. We were hoping to have Paula from DG Connect moderate the session. Paula seems to be in the session, but perhaps not able to join us. So I will start off anyway. And Paula, if you're able to, please jump in. So what we've got lined up this afternoon is this brief introduction, and then I'm going to give a little bit of background on the Cyber Competence Network's communications group, who we are, what we do, what we've done, what we want to do, and then we're going to go into 4 questions, looking at some of the things that we've been concerned with as a group around audience message, how to reach people, target audiences, and what to do about diversity. We were hearing quite a lot about diversity this morning, particularly from Sparta. And when we have each question, that will be followed by a brief discussion. And hopefully we'll be managed to do all of that and finish within 45 minutes. We're also going to ask you some questions. So we're going to try doing some polling, starting here. So we want your opinion on a number of things. Which group should be our most important audience? When I say our, I mean the 4 pilots and collectively. And so I'll start a poll. And we look forward to seeing what your responses are going to be to the poll. So we'll keep the poll open for the duration. So if you can remember those questions and then vote on them. I can see that people are already rapidly voting on them. We've had 29, 31, 32 responses so far. So we'll just leave the screen up for a wee minute and let people respond to that. Just so that we can continue, and I put the questions into the chat. Right, so do keep on polling, and we'll take a look at the results later. So who are we and what do we do? We are 4 individual pilots, each with its own brand identity. And we work very closely from the very beginning to create a common brand, which you see on all the advertisements for this conference. It's called Cyber Competence Network, and that represents the collection of the 4 pilots, not just for the communications group. We are the communications group within Cyber Competence Network, but for the joint activities of all 4 pilots, which sends out a very strong message to our collective audiences that we are working together collaboratively. So this is what you see. It's the joint brand of all 4 messages when we want to transmit a collective message and it represents our common voice. And we have a common website, which some of you will have already been to look at, which is where the website agenda is kept. So to be clear, the communications group is representatives who will meet shortly from each of the 4 pilots. And we all have our own tasks with disseminating within the context of our own projects. And we're also working on putting together a set of messages that will work for the 4 pilots working in unison. Because after all, we are addressing the same shared audiences with many of the shared objectives. And it's better to amplify our message when we can join forces as far as possible. It isn't always possible. We need to be able to, as Wim said this morning, demonstrate diversity, but also to collaborate. And there's a lot of strength in being able to do both. One message, 4 voices united. That sounds like a slogan. So what's our story? Where have we come from? The group was formed in February 2019. It might have even started in January before some of the projects launched. And it was established essentially to launch all 4 pilots. We work very closely with the European Commission on synchronizing our press releases and social media with the output coming from the Commission, launching these 4 pilots, which was and remains a very important milestone in the development of the legislation we were talking about yesterday evening and cybersecurity in Europe in general. So that was followed by a face-to-face meeting in Brussels in March 2019, where we started to work together. One of the first things we worked together was announcements, again in coordination with the Commission, about the meeting of the pilot coordinators with Commissioner Maria Gabriel at the launch of the legislation in the Strasbourg Parliament. So that was the beginning of the process through the Parliament that we were discussing last night and hoping will be concluded either by the end of this week or certainly before the end of this year, according to our panelists. In May or June, we created the common brand identity and launched the common website, cybercompetencenetwork.eu, and we launched it in a on stage with Despina Spanu, who again we met last night, with all 4 pilots represented, using a big red button. It was, in fact, it was blue, but symbolically it was red. We've subsequently produced infographics and a joint video featuring each of the pilots. So from June to December last year, representatives of the 4 pilots, not necessarily just the ones in the communications group, appeared on panels at conferences, workshops, and meetings the length and breadth of Europe. So we were called, that we were a novelty. A lot of people wanted to hear our message individually and collectively. What are you doing, Concordia? What are you doing, CyberSec? What are you doing together? And generally the presentations of each pilot's objectives lasted about 10 to 15 minutes, often resulting in more questions than answers that we could give. So there was a conundrum. Ideally, we would have 4 different sets of messages that would sound better as one. The reality is that we represent 4 different flavors of the same or complementary set of objectives but we also have well-defined contractual commitments. So for anybody working in the 4 pilots, we have deliverables, we have annual reviews, which keeps us busy most of the time and takes up most of our bandwidth. So how have we come to terms with this little conundrum that we actually ideally want to work together, but contractually and in our real pragmatic world, we have our own distinct objectives that we have to fulfill. So the resolution of this was, even though we recognized that there would be some value in a coordinated response to everything, coordinated strategy from the get-go, at the beginning of 2019, each project needed to get to know itself. And we did this in year one. We discovered our strengths and points of differentiation, and we got to know each other. We got to know each other within each pilot, and we got to know each other between pilots. And that, the result of that is this conference. But we also see that through the presentations this morning, the pilot sessions, the ways in which each of the different pilots have defined themselves and presented themselves slightly differently. So year two, it has become easier to really collaborate and discover synergies now that each pilot has asserted its own independence and character. So what is it exactly that we do? We meet online monthly, and hopefully we will meet again face-to-face twice a year, virus permitting. So in other words, we have no idea. The chair of the group is held by one of the pilots, rotating every month, 6 months. It started with Concordia, then it was Echo, Sparta, and right now it's CyberSec for Europe. And we will be handing over back again to Concordia at the end of January. And we collaborate very closely with DG Connect on activities, the cybersecurity monthly newsletter, which I assume most people will receive. Paula, who is hopefully going to be able to jump in at some point, is from DG Connect and attends our meetings. So we have very close links with the Commission and what they're proposing, and they have the opportunity of being very conscious of what we're planning to do as well. And we work in synergy. We work closely with the pilot coordinators. Why wouldn't we? They're our coordinators and our leaders through their regular meetings with DG Connect, which gives us an opportunity to highlight and promote the joint activities that are taking place and the areas of intersection between the different pilots and the different pilot activities and the activities of the Commission. And the areas that we wish to promote are the ones on the right-hand side, which are recognizable, the focus groups sessions that we are going to, which have been listening to today already, and we will be listening for the rest of today and tomorrow. And these are opportunities where the four pilots are working together, where we can accentuate the collaboration. So what next? So we regularly update the website and social media on the progress of the cybersecurity network and the center, which, according to the news late last night, is going to be in Bucharest, which is very exciting. That's progress in something that we've been talking about for 2 years. We want to publicize the work of each focus group, which we're featuring at this event through blog posts, interviews, and potentially collaborative documentary output. Coming back to this thing about representatives from each pilot presenting at different events, we would like to create a common for pilots presentation. Those already exist, so that they can be presented by any CCN representative, anybody from one of the four pilots, and address the media through press releases of different natures, depending on the different audiences we're trying to connect to, about the objectives of the network and the center, as well as what the pilots themselves individually and collectively have been doing. So that is where we want to go to. There are other longer term objectives about producing videos. We've already done one, but there's plenty of scope to do more podcasts and to create more infographics, which are a very easy visual way of presenting the work that we're doing. So that's the end of the background. And I move on to the 4 questions. Paula, are you able to join us? if you unmute, you've unmuted.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, there are a lot of problem of connection today. However, I'm very happy to be in this session, and thank you, David.
I'm very happy that you're in this session too.
Look, so I think that you did the very good presentation of the good work done within this communication group. I would like to pass the floor also to the panelists for the question and to go into the first one and the little presentation for the first question. So can you maybe launch the video or the presentation for the who is in the audience? Who are the people that we want to reach?
Paola? Paola, are you there? We seem to have lost our moderator again. So on the screen are just the highlights of the video that was just shown. Who needs to know what we're doing? Industry, academia, and standards bodies are the obvious one. They are the cybersecurity stakeholders, if you like. But do we need to reach out beyond that? Do we need to talk to citizens and SMEs? And what exactly is it that they need to know? So those are the questions. I'd like to open this up to our other panelists. So from Sparta, we have Elisabeth, and from ECHO, Martin, and from Concordia, Martin. Elisabeth, are you there? Elisabeth, if you unmute. We seem to be having a little bit of an issue here. Martin and Martin, could you unmute and put your cameras on?
I'm in.
Great. Delighted to hear it. So Martin, do you want to give us your impression of who our audience ought to be beyond the obvious? And I should say, if you have any questions, please put them into the public chat.
Martin is coming up, I guess, as well. Cool. So, well, my background is from academia the last some years, and then also I've been working quite some time on the industry side. And then at the end of the day, regardless of the organization, we are talking of private individuals sitting in front of their computer, should this be their office computer or their home computer. And then just in the last recent months, that might have been the same, actually, doing the lot in our home officing. So I would say that, yes, of course, we talk and we have our messages fine-tuned for the industry, I mean, for the specialists. But in terms of raising awareness and in terms of figuring out, as just the questions, that what do they really have to know, I believe that we have to be able to talk to the bigger public, and that immediately will include also the ones as in their private capacity, then getting back to their desks and then acting as professionals and as the leaders of the companies and so on and so on. So while the question seems to be quite obvious, then there is a tricky element to this by having us in at least two capacities every time.
Okay. Elizabeth, would you like to respond to that? Elizabeth, I think you're muted. If only I could lip read. Martin, do you want to respond? Martin, you also have to unmute. We seem to be having quite a few little problems here.
Oh, do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Fantastic, Martin. Go ahead.
Finally. So for me, this question is primarily about resources, because each of these target audience is relevant for our projects. But when our resources are limited, then we have to prioritize. And then for me, the most important is, of course, cybersecurity community, because our results are the most relevant for cybersecurity community. But of course, other target audience are also relevant, but it is a question about resources.
Yeah, resources are really important. The extending beyond the stakeholder community is a massive task, and more than never mind the individual pilots, but the pilots collectively can do, because as the video said, SMEs are 99% of European companies, and there are 500 million citizens. It's an enormous undertaking, even for a central organization like the Commission. So I guess one of the things that we can do is show best practice and provide some guidelines. I think Paula is still having difficulties, so I would suggest we move on to the next question. And the next question is question 2. Yep, the screen seems to have frozen. Let's see if we can run the video. What is the message?
At this moment, one of the issues with cybersecurity is that citizen awareness of the risks and the reality of the cybersecurity market is still not at the level that might be expected to tackle today's challenges.
Several stakeholders need to work together, like industry, research, academia, and public bodies. So this strong integration and cooperation is between the four pilots, but much also beyond.
Because it's in everybody's interest, as we're all working towards a common goal, to be able to get a common approach to subjects like cyber range or even threat intelligence.
We will compile a catalog of services that we can offer to all interested parties, all stakeholders, and in fact everything that counts is parties connecting to the network and sharing services, consuming services through the network of cyber competence centers.